Hello, 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 and welcome to MLB Live Before Lock. So, for the next hour, myself, Matt Bellman, are going to be breaking down tonight's MLB slate. And then afterwards, it is going to be Eric and Josh on NBA Live Before Lock for an hour. And then after that, it'll be Josh and I over on Playbacks. Do us a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Also, want to let you guys know we have a new offer that started on Playback yesterday. If you guys do sign up for a Playback subscription, which is going to allow you to watch all of the NBA games on our Playback channel, regardless of whether you have NBA League Pass, doesn't matter if you have cable access, it doesn't matter if you have any of those things. All you need to have is a subscription to our Playback channel. It's $12 per month, and that gets you access to all of the NBA playoff games. And we're now including with it anybody who signs up for a Stokastic Playback subscription. You could reach out to me, or you could email support. If you want to reach out to me, just DM me on Twitter, and we will get you a code to get 50% off any DFS single sport package. So if you sign up for the Playback, a little bit of extra value. It could be any sport you want, whether it's basketball, baseball, maybe you want to take advantage of MMA. There's a big UFC card this weekend. Whatever sport it is that you are looking to play and use our Sims for, hit me up if you have. And it doesn't matter if you've already signed up for a Playback. You don't have to sign up today. If you signed up a week ago, that works as well. Just hit me up and I will get you over that code for 50% off any single sport DFS package of your choosing. Matt, how you doing?
I'm good, man. Nervous about this Cavs game tonight. We talked a little bit about it before. Must win for Cleveland here. So excited to watch that game. Always love these Tuesday night NBA or MLB slates, though. We've got, ton of games on deck. Not really crazy weather concerns. So should be a really fun one to break down.
Did you watch both of the basketball games last night?
I watched not like through and through. Like I saw a lot of both games, but it wasn't like from first to fourth quarter. But I did watch a good amount of them.
I think it was the best night of hoops of the year. It was a ton of really, really good games. By the way, Coors Field game that has been called off for tonight. So just want to let you guys know that is something that not a consideration at this point. It has been taken off of the slate. But anyway, as far as last night, the NBA games were awesome. I watched both of them completely start to finish. And then also, there was a good hockey game last night as well, where the Maple Leafs beat the Florida Panthers 5-4, which I know that's of less interest to 99.999% of the people who watch our content. But I really enjoyed that game. I was watching that split screen with some of the basketball games last night as well. So really good night of sports viewing last night. And tonight should be another one because there's more good hockey games, 2 good basketball games, and then tonight's baseball slate, which we are going to be breaking down for you guys right here as well. And I know you said, Matt, for today, now that we've already got, bad weather games taken off the slate, is there any other real overarching thoughts or considerations you have in regards to the slate?
Yeah, so I think my overarching thought would be, or thoughts, so plays into the Coors game being removed. Although that being said, the Coors game wasn't getting that much love from a stack standpoint because Detroit was so expensive. That being said, it's a really flat ownership slate because we don't have Coors and we don't have the Dodgers. And we have the Yankees going against a really good pitcher. Mostly we don't have the Dodgers and no Coors. So you take those two out of the equation. Only one team projected to be over 10% owned. They're very much over-owned. We see that every day with the Royals, but they're also really cheap. So ownership, aside from 1, 2, maybe 3 teams, is not much of an issue at all today. So that's my overarching opinion.
I'm pretty happy to not have Coors Field. I've just over the years grown pretty tired of Coors Field making or breaking every slate that
it's annoying.
It's
I really do like though when they price up the Tigers like they did today, where they're so expensive that they're not going to be so chalky. So then I think it's an actual decision point. But I'm more with you than against you.
Yeah, it's just annoying where you have a team. It's like, hey, this team is 20% owned with a 25% chance to be the top stack on the slate. It's like,
right.
All right. It's such a popular spot, but the data indicates it's kind of warranted. I just find those slates to be less fun because it's like all the data says you should be playing Coors Field, but then even if you're playing Coors Field, you're in line with so much of the field. I just don't enjoy those slates. There was a point in time where I did, but I just don't anymore. So when that game got canceled, I was like, cool, not something that we really have to be concerning ourselves with now that game is not going to be here for the evening. And something else that really stands out to me, which is going to segue into us talking about the top of the slate here. We have 4 pitchers who are 9K or more expensive. Actually, let's go to all the pitchers who are 8,800 or more expensive, because that kind of fits together a little bit better. Just because Chris Sale at $8,800, he's 48% owned. So we've got 48% ownership to Chris Sale. We've got 41% ownership to Zach Wheeler. And then not insignificant ownership, but much less ownership compared to the 2 chalky options for the other pay-up options. Paul Skeens 15% owned, Michael King 10% owned, Pablo Lopez 11% owned. One thing I found pretty surprising about Paul Skeens, who, don't get me wrong, he's been very good this year. He hasn't been like the runaway Cy Young like he was priced to be at the start of the year. I think arguably Yamamoto's been better than him so far this season, but like quibbling, he's still obviously been outstanding. But one thing I found interesting when I was looking at some of the props this morning, and this stood out to me because one of the props at the top of the board for Portfolio EV was under 5.5 strikeouts for Paul Skeens, which stood out to me for a couple of reasons. First, 5.5 is a fairly low number compared to what we normally see for Paul Skeens. But then on top of it, the under projecting well also was kind of interest to me. This is a Cardinals team that not a great potent offense, but they put the ball in play. They don't strike out a whole bunch. But you also get Paul Skeens at 15% ownership, whereas we have Chris Sale and Zach Wheeler 40+% owned. So I want to start just by talking about Skeens because he is the only pitcher who's 10K plus on this slate. What do you make of him relative to his ownership?
I think relative to his ownership, he looks good here. Like, I don't think he looks as good from a raw points perspective as Sale or Wheeler, obviously. But when you factor in the ownership, I think they start to look like really similar plays, in my opinion. So I don't think any of these guys are must plays on this slate, but they all look good in their own right. I think Skeens doesn't look as good from a projection standpoint, but looks really, really good from an ownership standpoint. So I would understand why someone would go to Skeens, and he would certainly be in my pool in 150 settings. If I'm spending up, though, I am more inclined, I'm playing 5 lineups tonight, to play like a Wheeler. Sale's much cheaper than him, but to play those guys over him. But he's in the mix. You can't ignore that ownership. He looks really similar to the other guys when you consider he's so much less owned. So, yeah, I'm sure you see it kind of similarly.
Yeah. For cash games, he certainly wouldn't be the guy. Like you just play Zach Wheeler and Chris Sale and move on with the rest of your lineup. I think that's a pretty easy decision point. For tournaments, it's kind of interesting because I'll give you guys the breakdown of how my ownership is working in the Sims. I get overweight to Zach Wheeler, despite his high ownership. I prefer him to Chris Sale. So I get overweight to Zach Wheeler. I get underweight to Chris Sale, and I also get a little bit underweight to Paul Skeens. So I'm not getting to a ton of Skeens. But with that said, relative to ownership, I'm more underweight to Sale than I am to Paul Skeens, even though on the whole, I have more exposure to Sale than I have to Skeens because he still does, project quite a bit better, and he's quite a bit less expensive as well. So I hope everybody followed that. But basically, relative to ownership, my favorite of the popular and the expensive options is Zach Wheeler. I think Chris Sale is a really good cash game option. Still playable, obviously, for GPPs. I just have less than the 48%. Like, it's such a big number, 48% projected ownership. And then also when it comes to Paul Skeens, it's just hard because it doesn't project all that well for a pitcher who's that expensive. So there's other pitchers that I prefer that we're going to talk about in a little bit here that I like as pivot points. But Paul Skeens, like I looked at this late at first glance and I thought like, I'm probably going to like Paul Skeens at low ownership, did some more digging into the data, looked at the props, just didn't end up being the case. I mean, Zach Wheeler, for instance, he is a 7.5 strikeout prop, whereas Paul Skeens is a 5.5 strikeout prop. And Zach Wheeler is also a little bit less expensive. That makes a really big difference in terms of projecting a pitcher. And then traditionally, Zach Wheeler works deeper into games than Paul Skeens does as well. So if I'm rostering just one of the chalk options, which we're only talking about 2 who are really chalky, I prefer Zach Wheeler to Chris Sale. Is that the case for you, or do you prefer Sale to Wheeler?
No, I'm with you. I definitely prefer Wheeler to Sale. I will say I felt stronger about that like an hour ago when our tools had the ownership even farther apart, but I don't care. Wheeler is more expensive, but higher top pitcher percentage, lower ownership. He's been cleaner this season. Like, it's not a great spot for either. I don't think it's a bad spot for either, but you've got weather to worry about with Wheeler. Sale hasn't been like amazing this season. Sale's really cheap, so I get why someone would say Sale, but for me, the ownership is getting to be pretty crazy with Sale. it's too high for Wheeler, but if I had to roster one, it's Wheeler.
Yeah, that's for me as well. Wheeler as my number one overall favorite pitching option on the slate. He's the only one I have in more than half of my lineups. Now, Michael King, Pablo Lopez, either of them standing out to you as contrarian options?
Yeah, I like Pablo Lopez here. Scary spot. We know Baltimore has a lot of talent, but they have not been great this year. Pablo Lopez has been great this year. I mean, he continues to just be phenomenal. Really low ERA, really low expected ERA, doesn't walk anyone. 9K, not getting ownership. Like, he's coming in with a not a crazy amount of leverage, but it's basically like Sale and Wheeler are crazy negatively leveraged, and then literally every other pitcher is slightly positively leveraged. So Lopez fits that mold. Cheaper than Wheeler, cheaper than Skeens, basically the same price point as Sale. Nice pivot off of Sale. I like Pablo Lopez a lot here. How about you?
He's the contrarian pitcher that I like to be spending up for. There's some other cheaper contrarian options that I'm also getting to on this slate. But as far as the expensive guys who aren't pulling that much ownership, I see it the same way. And, this Baltimore Orioles team, it's been really disappointing relative to their breakout last year. We've known the Orioles breakout was coming, just considering how talented they were, the young players that were on the team, and that we would expect them to be improving. But it just hasn't really worked out this year. And, going forward, I think they'll be better. I do think they're probably more likely to miss the playoffs than make the playoffs just because of an overall lack of pitching. But like Gunnar Henderson, massive last year. He was an MVP candidate. It wasn't like a realistic pick for MVP because there was Aaron Judge who existed. But if you were to make the top three candidates last year, it would have been Aaron Judge, Gunnar Henderson, and Bobby Witt. Bobby Witt also would have been ahead of Gunnar Henderson. But either way, like, he was, to me, one of the three. Maybe you want to include Juan Soto in the mix. I thought Henderson was like pretty comparable to Juan Soto in terms of value, but Gunnar Henderson was great last year. He hasn't been terrible this year, like a 107 WRC plus. That's not something you look at and be like, oh, that's a bad player. It's just not what you were expecting from Gunnar Henderson on the breakout that he had last year. Adley Rutschman was easily a top prospect who came into the league and immediately found success. His rookie season, 135 WRC plus. His second season, 127 WRC plus. Last year, he regressed and had a 104 WRC plus. And then so far this year, he's had a 102 WRC plus. So you have these young guys who are top prospects that you thought were going to develop and be stars and MVP candidates. They haven't been terrible. They've just been below expectations. And then when this Orioles team, not that this matters for Pablo Lopez, but when this team also didn't add pitching to the mix and they lost Corbin Burnes in the offseason, although I don't think they probably wanted to have Corbin Burnes back. Like, I think it's going to be a very bad contract for Corbin Burnes going forward. But you just have this team that's kind of disappointing and hasn't made the strides that you thought they possibly could have. And it's just across the board for this team. And Pablo Lopez, to your point, really good. He's been really good for a meaningful amount of time now. And I think some of that gets forgotten because he had a 4.08 ERA last year. A lot of it was due to bad luck. His underlying numbers suggest he should have been quite a bit better. And now his numbers just kind of, he's not going to have a 2.25 ERA the rest of the season, but you got a guy who's capable of generating strikeouts, works deep into games, and has a matchup that's probably a little bit easier than people think of it on paper against the Orioles. So I know I said a lot of words there. The short version of it is I like Pablo Lopez as my favorite contrarian payout pitcher.
No, all your words were well taken. For me, the Orioles, like, not living up to the hype. The two main things this season is Rutschman's inability to like relive how he was 2 years ago, and them losing Grayson Rodriguez, to your point about the pitching staff, like, because they didn't re-sign Burnes, et cetera. They really needed a full year out of him, and obviously they're not going to get it. So I don't think this team makes the playoffs either. And on a night-to-night basis, like, they have upside, sure, but it's not like as scary a matchup as you would have thought coming into the season, or you would have thought last year, et cetera. It's just not. No Santander either anymore. Like, they replaced him with Tyler O'Neill, who's been hurt. And a lot of their prospects, even besides like the Rutschman and Hendersons, have been good, but like none of them have been like amazing. So it kind of just goes to the old, you never know what a prospect truly is until he's called up.
Yeah, so we'll see what ends up happening with Baltimore going forward. But either way, Pablo Lopez, I think he looks pretty solid for tonight's slate. If we look at the rest of the pitchers in the 8K range behind Chris Sale, now everybody we're going to talk about is somewhat contrarian the rest of the way through here, because you got Matthew Liberatore, who is 11% owned. He's the only remaining pitcher on the slate who has more than 10% ownership. So Matthew Liberatore or any of the other pitchers in the 8K range priced under Chris Sale appealing to you at all?
Yeah, it's Liberatore, man. Like, he's my favorite pitcher on the slate. I like Lopez a lot, but Liberatore is the guy for me if this ownership holds, and I don't see any reason why it wouldn't, but he has popped in the tools also recently. Like, since it's updated a couple times, he's now 4th overall in the top pitcher tool. Ownership isn't really there. One of the highest leveraged pitchers on the slate, one of the most positively leveraged pitchers, I should say. His underlying stuff is great. He's been really good this year. Pittsburgh stinks in general. They're not good against lefties. I'm in on Liberatore here. Like, I don't feel great about it considering the other options we have. Like, there is opportunity cost at pitcher tonight. We talked about the top 3 guys, but I don't think any of the top 3 guys are like foolproof either. Like, I think all of them could fail in their own ways. Liberatore's in a good spot, not getting ownership, cheap, been good. He checks off a lot of the boxes for me here.
Yeah, and Liberatore also overweight too. I've got a little bit over 20% of him, so about 2x the field on Liberatore. And yeah, he's been really solid so far this year. He doesn't have the same upside of the other pitchers we've talked about so far, although he is, a little bit cheaper as well. So you're saving some salary, $200, only 11% owned, but 3.44 ERA so far this year, 2.93 expected ERA, 2.33 FIP. So that's all really strong. The one thing, like I said, that gives you a little bit of hesitation, at least for GPPs, is that he's only a 22.6% strikeout rate this year, and for his career, 19.4%. So I'm a little skeptical of what the ceiling is, but at $8,200 in low ownership and also a pretty good matchup as well going up against the Pittsburgh Pirates, he definitely does look like a pitcher, or at least relative to ownership, is somebody to be overweight to the field to. As far as the other pitchers go in the 8K range, one other one that I have a little bit of interest in as well is Zach Gallen here, Matt, where he's another pitcher who I think is kind of weird and difficult to figure out just because he was so good at one point in time and he's not been terrible this year. He's just kind of been okay-ish. But here's where I actually think he's different from, actually very different from Matthew Liberatore. I think Zach Gallen has a higher ceiling than Liberatore today, but so much lower of a floor. He hasn't pitched as well. He's got a brutal matchup against the Mets. And then also, he's got a 4.93 ERA, but 3.79 expected ERA, 4.34 FIP. It's funny because early in his career, he was a guy who his underlying stats were better than his actual numbers. Then he went through a couple of years where he got really lucky relative to his underlying numbers. Now it's the other direction again. His numbers, for whatever reason, have never matched his underlying numbers. It's always been way off, either with him being lucky or unlucky on a year-to-year basis. But the one thing that I do like about him that's going to be most important for GPPs, 26% strikeout rate. So 6% ownership. I'm not necessarily crazy about Zach Gallen, but I do have a little bit over 10%. So I bring him up as an in-play contrarian pitcher.
Yeah, definitely in-play contrarian. Not for me tonight. I struggle with Gallen because I'm a huge fan in general, but he's had 2 good starts this year. The rest have been pretty crappy. One of them was last start out, I believe, at home against this same Mets team. Last start or 2 starts ago. He's been really good in his 2 starts in New York, ironically, against the Mets and the Yankees. Other than that, has not been very good. Tonight's not the night for me here, although I will concede to you that I do think on his best day, his upside is higher than Liberatore's. I just don't think we see that tonight.
Yeah. So for me, Zach Gallen, a little bit of interest, nothing all that crazy though. And everybody's super contrarian that we're going to talk about the rest of the way through. By the way, giving you a little bit of an update on your Cleveland Cavaliers. It's a non-update update though, because it's Mobley, Garland, Hunter, still questionable. So I assume these guys are going to be game time decisions. They're going to warm up and go through treatment, see how they feel prior to the game, and if they're good to go. I know people get all up in arms and they call bullshit when players are game time decisions, but I think the reality is if this was a regular season game, these guys wouldn't play. But this is a very high leverage playoff game where they're down 1-0. So I think that they really want to make sure there's no stone left unturned. They want to get these guys warming up. They want to get them treatment and then go right up to the game and see how it is they're feeling and if they are or aren't able to go. So I know a lot of people don't really give a shit about there's a good amount of overlap between MLB and NBA in terms of our viewers. So there are some people who care, but I know in large part people want to hear us talk about baseball, but wanted to go ahead and give you guys that update because it just came through, as well as read you a super chat here from Ethan King. Not really a question, more of a comment. Well, there is a question here as well, but it's more of a joke here, Matt. Ethan would like you to play other contests outside of the high dollar DraftKings contest, Matt. He is tired of you beating him every night. He says, with hate from Illinois, killing, keep stacking it. So there you go, Matt. You got a request to allow somebody else to win money. Your response to that?
Yeah, I mean, maybe at some point.
there will be a day. It might not be this year. It might not be next year. Maybe it's 7 years down the line. Maybe it's when we've all passed on and the next generation is playing DFS. But at some point, all heaters come to an end. So, Ethan, you will have your turn. But Matt is not going to relinquish the crown that easily. But something that could help you is sign up with the Stokastic tools. Sign up for any of the packages that we have here using the links we have down below in the YouTube description box. That is going to help you to use the same tools Matt uses to build his lineups. And also, if you want to take advantage of our referral program, sign up for any of our partner sites here. And for each one you sign up for, you get 1 free month of core access. So if you do want to sign up for a couple of the books here on screen, link for this down below in the YouTube description box. You have to go through that page just for tracking purposes. Each one of these you sign up for, you do get 1 free month of core access. Like I said before, it's going to get you access to our Discord channel as well. And then it'll be on an exact even playing field with Matt, because you already get Matt's analysis. He's on here doing shows with myself or Eric or EMAC on the weekends. And then in addition to that, you're going to get the same data that he uses. I mean, like, Matt's not a wizard or anything like that. It's not like he's not simulating the slates in his head. He's not from the future. He's just using the data that's on screen that you're seeing right here to build his lineup. So you could get access to these lineups as well. Sign up for any of the packages that we have. 7K pitchers, any of them of interest to you, Matt?
I'm trying to get over you saying I'm not a wizard, but no, yeah, not really. I just feel like there's enough up top in terms of chalk and getting away from the guys up top that not really needed, especially because I like Libertor, who's 8,200. Like, he's not that expensive. I don't really see it with like the cheap pitching, especially because there's no one that's like real cheap except for Sean Burke, and that's not for me.
Yeah, I do have some interest in a couple of pitchers. Not ones I feel great about, but just to save salary with. None of them are in the 7K range, though. Like Peterson, Jose Urena. Like, I don't know what the hell the deal is with Urena. He's got information on somebody. This dude is sucked forever, and he gets opportunities with. By the time he's done, he will have played on every single big league team. He'll play with the Bananas, whatever that team's like. He everywhere. Jose Urena is going to end up playing. It never goes well for him, but he keeps getting those opportunities. You also see the 4.7 implied team total for the Angels going up again. And the Angels never have a 4.7 implied team total these days in baseball games. So the 7K pitchers, nothing really does stand out to me. I have a couple of punt options that are viable to me. Also not ones that I love, Matt, but I'm going to read a couple of names off to you and let me know what you think. I like is a very strong word. I find acceptable Clark Schmidt at $6,900. Clark Schmidt is not terrible, like relative to his salary at $6,900. He's a little bit underpriced.
I agree.
The matchup against San Diego, but if I absolutely had to punt, I think he's acceptable. And then also Cade Povich, just because he is so cheap at 5K.
Yeah, he kind of slipped through the cracks for me. Like, he's even cheaper than Burke. He's been awful this year, and I don't like it. But I do agree with you. Like, if you have to spend down, those are your two options. I'm not going to put myself in that position, but I do agree with you.
Yeah, so once again, like, not guys I really love, but I understand if you're building an expensive stack, you need a punted pitcher. I think there's a couple of guys who are at least in play that make it acceptable. Like, there's a lot of slates where it would just be like Emerson Hancock and Sean Burke are your only punt option. Just tell people, sorry, you can't punt it pitcher. Today, I don't love doing it, but if you had to click on Clark Schmidt or Cade Povich, I think it's acceptable. Povich is somebody who is a well-regarded prospect who hasn't pitched all that well in the big leagues, but he's cheap at 5K. And at 5K, if you go out and score, like 10, 11, 12 fantasy points and your offenses go off, like that could be enough, especially on some smaller field tournaments. Anything else you want to add at pitcher for DraftKings?
I don't think so.
All right. So we don't have any DraftKings related pitching questions. We do have FanDuel related pitching questions coming to us from Sally Sal. So we'll hit on that after we go through some of our general analysis here. Then we'll get to Sal's question. But first thing I want to ask you, Matt, is for cash games, who's your preference? Because DraftKings is pretty easy. You just play Sale and Wheeler. On FanDuel, though, we've got a 34% on Chris Sale. We've got a 21% on Zach Wheeler. Everybody else is sub 10% owned. Who do you prefer between Wheeler and Sale today for cash?
I mean, part of the reason I don't play cash games is for stuff like this. You just got to play Sale, in my opinion. Like, he's $1,100 cheaper and getting all the ownership. I mean, Wheeler's going to be the second highest owned, but in cash games, I wouldn't be surprised to see it like, honestly, like 50% Sale, 30% Wheeler, and then the rest split out to everyone else. So give me Sale and I'll move on there. How about you?
Yeah, I think just because Sale is quite a bit more popular, he's 34 to 21% owned. I'm going to make that the differentiating point for me in cash games. For GPPs, I just prefer Zach Wheeler. Same as over on the DraftKings side of things. You're getting him at a lower ownership on FanDuel, and even when they're like comparably owned on DraftKings, I still lean towards Zach Wheeler. So Zach Wheeler, I like him more in tournaments than Chris Sale. I wouldn't call Chris Sale somebody to play like 0% of in tournaments, but I don't want to have 34% of him on a FanDuel slate either. You can only roster one pitcher. Do you have a contrarian pitcher who stands out to you on FanDuel? And this encompasses everybody who isn't Sale or Wheeler.
Yeah, so honestly, this pitching slate looks almost identical to DraftKings, except you obviously only roster one guy, but it's the same too for me. Pablo Lopez and Liberatore. Both guys pretty high in the top pitcher tool. Both guys not getting a lot of ownership. So no one's getting ownership outside of Sale and Wheeler. Skeen's a tiny bit, but Lopez and Liberatore, my two favorite pitchers on the slate. How about you?
Yeah, so for me, I'm going to once again add Zach Gallen to the mix, who has the same ownership as Liberatore, $100 cheaper, the same exact top pitcher odds. So same deal. Like you said, everything's pretty similar to me across DraftKings and FanDuel. All the same things apply to Zach Gallen here. I think he has a higher ceiling than Liberatore. The floor is quite a bit lower because of the factors we talked about before, the tough matchup, and the fact that he's also been inconsistent, but he strikes out more hitters than Liberatore. So I think that gives himself a better chance for a higher ceiling here. But beyond that, there aren't really that many pitchers to like. Sally South said pitchers to fade on FanDuel. Here's my best answer. Anybody who's priced below $8,900 is not worth playing on FanDuel. I would just remove all those guys from consideration.
I totally agree.
Yeah, I mean, you got Andrew out. Like, it's a lot of pitchers, but just the way the salary works on FanDuel, where it's like if you wanted to play, Clark Schmidt, who I said is acceptable over for DraftKings, like you're getting crazy salary savings on him relative to the other pitchers. But on the FanDuel side of things, he's $7,800. He's only $1,000 cheaper than Gallen. He's $1,000 cheaper than Matthew Liberatore. Like, it's not all that hard to get up to those guys on DraftKings. He's $6,900 and like Liberatore's $8,200, Gallen's $8,000. But then also just the way that the pricing works, pricing's a little bit softer on FanDuel, so just easier to find the extra salary to spend up for pitching that it is on DraftKings. So I don't think anybody's like it's baseball, so anything can happen. I'm not going to say it's impossible that one of these cheap guys goes off. I think it's unlikely enough, though, that I don't have interest in playing a single pitcher who's under $8,900.
I don't know if it's as unlikely as you about one of them going off. I just have no idea who it would be. Yeah. I mean, baseball's going to baseball, so who the hell knows? But on paper, none of them look good. I'm totally with you.
Yeah, I mean, you look at some of these guys, like you got Andrew Abbott, a 3% chance to be a top scoring pitcher, and then you scroll down, you've got Verlander also a 3% chance. Like there's some guys who have a 3% chance. So kind of what I'm trying to say is like, could one of these guys have a good game? Yeah, absolutely. Could one of these guys be the highest scoring pitcher? It's unlikely, but yeah, it's not impossible. It's just like
the pricing's so condensed. You actually like need them to be the highest scoring pitcher. I get your point totally.
Yeah. So to me, yeah, just fade the cheap pitchers on FanDuel today. I don't really think it's a worthwhile endeavor to try to get contrarian. You could easily get contrarian by going to Zach Gallen at 3% ownership, Liberatore 3% ownership, Pablo Lopez 5% ownership. So that's the way that I like approaching the FanDuel slate here. One other thing too that I think we could discuss a little bit. I saw somebody in YouTube chat brought it up. He does have a really good matchup. Any interest in Seth Lugo at all today? Because he does have a really good matchup against the White Sox, who we've picked on a little bit. He's $8,700 over on DraftKings. On FanDuel, he's $9,200. He is one guy who's in a really good matchup that we haven't really discussed.
Yeah, I get it because it's the insert pitcher against White Sox, and Lugo is just a fine real-life pitcher. His underlying numbers lead me to believe that there's regression coming sooner rather than later. I don't think it happens tonight, but the White Sox have been feisty enough where I'm like, I don't really want to play Lugo. I don't think he's a bad play, and he's been in the back of my mind like throughout this entire show. And actually, he's kind of bumped up in the tools now. So like, yeah, this stuff is ever changing. Before, when we talked about this 15 minutes ago or 10 minutes ago, Liberatore was like the fourth highest pitcher in the top pitcher tool. Now it's Lugo. So by a pretty good margin. Who knows if that changes again, but maybe it has something to do with lineups coming out, whatever it is. Lugo actually looks good enough for us to talk about. I don't think he's a must play, but he's in the mix.
So here's the problem I have with Lugo is he's good enough from a real life perspective that he's never cheap, but his upside is so capped because he doesn't generate strikeouts. And this has been the case for him really ever since he moved to a starting role. So he's a sub 20% strikeout rate this year. It's 19.9%. Every projection model has him right around a 20% strikeout rate for the year. It was 21.7% last year. And he was also incredibly good at the start of last season. Finished the year with 4.7 wins above replacement. There weren't very many pitchers who were more valuable than him, but he still didn't really bring that much DFS upside with a 3 ERA last year, just because the strikeout rate wasn't really all that high. So Seth Lugo is somebody who I always find a hard time getting to because there's always guys priced around him that have just considerably higher ceilings. So, Seth Lugo goes out and pitches a really good game against the White Sox. It's like he still has to outscore Chris Sale, Zach Wheeler, Pablo Lopez, because these are the guys who he's priced around, and he just has so much less strikeout equity that even a good start for for Seth Lugo, I still think it's pretty likely that one of these other expensive pitchers ends up outscoring him.
Yeah, well said. I have no arguments with that.
Yeah, so that's where I'm at on Seth Lugo. Understand where people are coming from, just because it's the White Sox he's going up against, and Lugo is a quality pitcher. 3.07 ERA, but to Matt's point, the 4.2 ERA, the 4.47 FIP, and he's been good for a little while. Even moving from a relieving role to a starter role. He started his career as a starter. He struggled. He moved to a relief role, found a lot of success there. And then we had the Padres moved him back into a starting role and started to find success. It did come at a pretty big trade-off with that strikeout rate, and it just never bounced back as a starter. Any other final thoughts on pitching?
No, I don't think so. We broke it down pretty well. There's a bunch of guys that are in play, and then there's a pretty clear line of the guys you don't want to play.
All right, so let's go ahead and look at some of our favorite stacks on the slate. And once again, reminding you guys, if you have not done yet, it really means a lot to us if you simply like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. It helps us in the algorithm, and it takes up like a half second of your time. There's a lot of ways you could support our shows. You could sign up for a subscription to Stokastic. That helps keep our shows going. But if you could just kindly like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel, that is a very easy way to help us with zero cost to yourself. So if you haven't done it, get on it. Hit those buttons for us. At offense, Matt, no Coors Field on the slate, which means that the ownership a little bit spread out. We do have one very popular team, though, in the Kansas City Royals. They are 12% owned, looking like the most over-owned team on the slate. In the top stacks tool, we've got the Mariners 9.3% owned. The Twins are 8.7% owned. And then ownership isn't remotely a concern for any other team on the slate outside of those top three. Who is the team, though, if you were just building one lineup? What is the team you'd be stacking in a single entry lineup?
Good question. I think there's a lot of good choices here. There isn't like one team that stands out to me personally, but the team that I like the most as of right now is going to be the Athletics. They've been really good to me this year. They continue to look good in the top stack tool. They come in with nice leverage. They're expensive enough where that might not be like end up being my the top stack I play tonight, but I do like them quite a bit, and I'm going to try to see if I can make it work. Again, though, I understand more so than on other slates why teams like the Royals and the Mariners are getting so much love because they're cheap and they fit in with the expensive pitching. I guess the other team I'll say with the Athletics is the Twins, although ownership is getting to be maybe concerning for them too. But I'll stick with the Athletics for now. How about you?
Yeah, looking through the teams that I have the most exposure to for tonight, and by the way, I think both sides of that game, like I think Seattle and the Athletics, I think both of them look pretty good. Jeffrey Springs hasn't been great this year, and then also Emerson Hancock, he's a gas can, so you could see that being a pretty high scoring game on both sides. But I do agree with you that the Athletics look pretty good. But I want to touch on a team from a pitcher I made fun of not all that long ago, because one of my most roster teams on the slate. It is the Los Angeles Angels going up against Jose Urena. The Angels, just not a very expensive team because the hitters aren't all that great. But, I mean, you look at Jose Urena, there's a reason why he is on one, if not multiple teams every year since 2021. It's because he's no good at all. Last year, he split time between being a starter and a reliever, so his numbers are a little bit deceiving. Not that they're great. He had a 4.4 expected ERA, 4.62 FIP, but it's easier to find success as a reliever. But it says a lot that it's like, hey, this guy might be a little bit overrated because he had a 4.4 expected ERA and a 4.62 FIP as a reliever last year. This year, he's only made one appearance. It was with the Mets. It was terrible. And then they were gone with him. For some reason, he lands in Toronto because other teams decide they need to take a chance on him. But you look at his other years where he served as a starter. 2023, 6.45 ERA, 5.77 expected ERA. 2022, 5.01 ERA, 4.91 expected ERA. 2021, 5.81 ERA, 5.88 expected ERA. 2020, pitching for the Marlins, really super pitcher-friendly ballpark in Miami. Really hard to be a train wreck there, but he did it. 5.4 ERA, 5.59 expected ERA in 2020 with Miami. In 2019 with Miami, 5.21 ERA, 5.23 expected ERA. The guy just continually gets chances. He has not had an actual win. He's not produced a full win above replacement in an individual season since 2018. And he's got nearly 10 years of being a terrible pitcher that continually gets chances. And he's on a different team every few months. This is already a second team of 2025. So I know this isn't a great Angels offense, but I honestly don't even think Urena could get on minor league hitters if he was pitching in Double-A right now.
So I always stack against Urena. My biggest issue is I'm not positive that he's not just an opener for Eric Lauer here.
Could be. It's definitely a possibility. So even if Eric Lauer ends up coming into the game, though,
yeah, he's not very good either. But I really do just want to stack against Urena. I'm just seeing, that he's just going to open for the Jays here, which just changed things a little bit for me.
It doesn't that much for me. I'm not gonna put any stock into the one appearance he made this year. He pitched 4 innings, but there was no interest in Eric Lauer in the big leagues last year, so he had to pitch overseas in the KBO. He pitched for the Kia Tigers, I think. I forget the teams over there, but whatever. Which team he pitched for doesn't matter. In the KBO, he had a 4.93 ERA and a 4.04 FIP. And this is not like the highest quality of league. So now why was there no interest in him pitching in the MLB in 2024? Well, it's because in 2023 with the Brewers, he had a 6.56 ERA, a 7.54 expected ERA, and a 7.41 FIP. So I think Eric Lauer, it's hard to say, there's such a long track record of Jose Urena being bad, but I think Eric Lauer is not great either. So I have no issues picking on him either at all.
Yeah, I'm with you. I do like the Angels a lot here. I would like it slightly more if it was just Urena, but again, I am with you. Lauer stinks too. So then you get a lefty coming in. So presuming they do some damage to Urena, it is just an all around really good spot for the Angels.
Yeah, so for me, that's the team that I'm liking for single entry, like stacking against Urena, like stacking against Eric Lauer as well. I think both of those are train wrecks of pitchers who are to be gotten, and crazy that is what Toronto is potentially going to be rolling out for today. We also got a question in Discord. It is from Hey, I'm Drew. He wants to know any particular hitters that are standing out for cash games. And yeah, it's going to be a lot of the Royals hitters. We'll talk about them and their ownership in a second here against Sean Burke and what it means for GPPs. But for cash games, for a slate of this size, like it's very rare that you're going to have crazy popular hitters. But Bobby Witt is 25% owned. He's definitely somebody I think you should be playing in cash games. Julio Rodriguez is a hitter I think you should be playing in cash games today as well. So those are a couple of pay-up options that look pretty good at offense. Vinny Pasquantino is $3,400 at first base. You got Jonathan India with third base and outfield eligibility. He's only $3,100. These guys are really, really popular in tournaments. For cash games, we won't care about that as much. Those are the guys that make the most sense to me for today. For tournaments, though, Matt, with the Royals being 12% owned as a team, what do you make of them relative to their ownership?
Yeah, they're over-owned. I mean, this is what we see continuously now. They're way too cheap. So, like, in the NBA, it'd be impossible to get away from these guys. But this isn't the NBA. I mean, you need home runs. The Royals, outside of that game on Sunday, don't hit a lot of home runs. They do run, and obviously they've got guys that are desirable. Bobby Witt, namely the top one. But they're just way over-owned here because they're so cheap. I'd rather get different elsewhere. Even Seattle, who's like just as cheap as Kansas City, looks a lot better to me because they're way higher in the top stack tool and they're lower owned. So if I'm playing one of these chalky teams, it's certainly for me going to be Seattle, also guaranteed the 9 at bats. But I don't really think either of those teams personally look good enough to be so chalky on such a big slate. So certainly the Royals, the Mariners, I'm iffy about, but I'm inclined to get away from them also just because there's so many teams not getting ownership. KC is not a team I'm going to personally play.
Somebody's got to clip that. The next time Matt wins a GPP, I'd like to reply with a video where Matt says they've got a lot of desirable guys. That's pull that clip. Somebody grab it for me. I'll go back and get it afterwards. In reality, I'll forget about it in 10 minutes. But out of context, I think that could be really funny to repurpose at points in times here. But yeah, Kansas City Royals, like I think the team looks really good relative to their price. They're just so popular. And then especially for some of those small field GPPs, I mean, like, what are these Royals hitters going to be? Like 20 to 30% owned? Like, they're going to be really popular. Bobby Witt might be like 30 to 40% owned in single entry today. He's going to be crazy popular as a one-off hitter. For GPPs, you're playing contrarian stacks, like sure, playing them as one-offs or playing them as a secondary stack makes sense, but it's hard for me to love a team that has 12% ownership and a 7% chance to be the top scoring team on the slate. I mean, you could instead go to a team like Toronto, who's 7% owned, but who has a 7% chance of being the top scoring team with 5% ownership. Or you could go to the A's, who you had brought up before. They're 5% owned with a 7% chance to be the top scoring team. So there's teams with pretty much identical odds to the Royals being a top scoring team. They're a little bit more expensive, but you're also getting like a third of the ownership to a half of the ownership. So the Royals, I think that's a team to be underweight to. If I'm playing 1, 2, 3 lineups, none of them would be Royal stacks. I'm playing large field GPPs. I would get exposure to the Royals, just not quite as much as the field. Anything else that you have on by the way, Jackson Merrill active today. So that's something to keep in mind for the Padres. But any other thoughts on the popular teams, Seattle, Minnesota, KC?
I think you're doing it wrong in tournaments, like especially larger field stuff. If you're playing Sale, Wheeler, and a 5-man Royal stack. Now, that might get there, and if you get real weird with your 3-man, then sure. But like, that's not how I'm playing MLB DFS.
Yeah, totally fair. Totally fair. As far as other stacks on the slate, any other ones that are standing out to you for any particular reasons as ones that are strong core options to be stacking?
So a lot of teams look good. You mentioned the Angels. I like them. I talked about the Athletics. You briefly mentioned the Blue Jays. They look good. I like them quite a bit. And then Arizona. I can't get off stacking against David Peterson, and I also have a propensity to stack Arizona against lefties. They haven't hit for much power against lefties this season, but they also don't strike out. No Christian Walker anymore hurts them, but also getting Ketel Marte back now is their best left-handed, best hitter against left-handed pitching. I like some D-backs here. I'm not going to let tonight be the night that I don't stack against Peterson and he blows up.
Don't have an issue with that at all. You and I feel like we've been talking about the David Peterson regression for a year and a half or so now, but the numbers do indicate that it should be happening. He's not somebody who I think is a very great starting pitcher. He has done a little bit better with the peripheral stats this year. At least his FIP is a little bit better, but still, I mean, he had the 3.06 ERA this year, 2.9 ERA the year before. It's hilarious because you look at this guy overall for the course of his career, and in the aggregate, his actual numbers almost exactly align with the underlying numbers. For his career, he has a 4.02 ERA and a 4.01 FIP. But on a year-by-year basis, he has years where he has like drastically over and underperformed his FIP. Kind of what I was talking about earlier as well with, was it Zach Gallen who I was talking with that about? Yeah, I think it was Zach Gallen. But
funny, like they're facing each other here.
Like crazy swings, because the numbers for Peterson in 2023 are identical to his numbers, the underlying numbers in 2024 and 2025. The difference is just like the luck stats. So just balls in play leading to extra hits. He had a 370 BABIP in 2023 across 27 games. So like that's where you end up with a guy who has a 5.03 ERA. And then that just goes down to 293 last year. His strand rate goes up crazy high to 78%. This year, he's had a strand rate of 81%. He's not doing anything magical that makes him like a lights out pitcher with a runner on third or anything like that. It's just kind of been lucky sequencing. He doesn't suck or anything like that. He's just like a league average pitcher who is likely going to be league average going forward, but has had a really long string of like 26 starts in a row or something like that, where he's had really positive luck, and he had really shitty luck for like the 27 starts before that. So I don't disagree with you. I think it makes sense to take some shots on Peterson with the Arizona Diamondbacks. Let's see, what did I get for exposure to Arizona? I have Arizona. Yeah, some exposure to them. Not a ton, but some. There's other teams we've talked about that I prefer. Like I do prefer getting to Toronto. I prefer Seattle. I prefer the Athletics. Any really low-owned contrarian stacks that we should be touching on at all?
A lot of teams are lower owned than aside from like the Mariners, Twins and Royals, obviously. As far as like real like, dumpster diving, I should put it. I mean, Cincinnati has stolen base upside against Sale, who, allows everyone to run on him. So like, he's the most chalky pitcher. Cincinnati's not an awful lineup. We know they have upside. So like, I don't think that's a crazy call. If there was going to be one team down there that I got to, I think it would be them. Yeah, I don't love them. Obviously, I'm not looking to pick on Sale, but it would be them. How about you?
Yeah, so for me, if I had to go to one, I think I do agree with you on the Reds for a couple. I mean, like the main reason is just all the ownership that's going to Chris Sale. Like that's the number one reason why it would make sense. The other part of this as well, though, is Chris Sale won the Cy Young literally out of nowhere last year. Like who would have seen? I didn't even think it was possible for him to stay healthy for an entire season last year. He won the Cy Young last year, and unfortunately got hurt right before the playoffs. So he that was something that impacted the Braves. But he had not made more than 20 starts in a year since 2019, and he won the Cy Young last year. He hadn't even made more than 10 starts in most seasons prior to last year. And then you look at this season where his velocity is down so far. He has a 4.84 ERA, a little bit of bad luck. Like the underlying numbers suggest he should be better, although not nearly as good as he was last year. But pitches in a hitter-friendly ballpark. He does struggle a little bit with home runs. That's been the case for him throughout his career. 11.6% home run to fly ball rate. He also has a career worst 35.7% ground ball rate so far this year. So the home run to fly ball rate is always a little bit high for him. And then in addition to that, he's allowing more fly balls this year. We know the long injury history for him. He's 36 years old now. He's just overowned to me, and that's why it makes a little bit of sense to be stacking against him, and not to the point where I'd be like, hey, jam the Reds or anything like that. But they are 2% owned as a team. Like if you built 100 lineups and you had 4 of them with the Reds, you're double the field on them. Of all the teams that you could potentially get leverage stacking, it's the Reds that stand out the most to me.
Yeah, we're on the same exact page there. I mean, I'm honestly considering, stacking them in one of my lineups here. I'm playing 5 lineups, so I'm not playing a ton of lineups. I don't think I'll get there because it's, such a boomer bust spot. And chances are obviously Sale is really good, but man, you just watch him also. You read the number stuff. You watch him last start in Colorado, and yeah, he ended up with 1 million Ks because Colorado is awful, but he got hit hard and the Rockies are awful. So Cincinnati has upside against anyone. And if they get on base, they're running. And that's a massive underrated part of MLB DFS is when you get those stolen bases. So yeah, interesting to me, if nothing else.
All right. Any other offenses that you want to talk about here? If not, we will do our dong picks.
I don't think so. I mean, they're just, again, only the Royals are a team I'd be worried about offensively. So, or for ownership wise, I should say. So no, I think we said it pretty well.
All right. So with that in mind, you guys know what time it is. We always close out the show by giving out our favorite home run picks for DFS today. Also, like hearing from you guys in chat, let us know who you are picking to go yard today. And also want to just double back and make sure we didn't miss anything in the Discord channel. We did get one question here really quick. So we'll answer this one from Einsteinium before we do our home run picks. We'll let them accumulate in the YouTube chat. So they're all sitting there waiting for us by the time that we answer this. But he wants to know, is the Astros a team that we're interested in have exposure to? For me, that is no.
Man, I'll tell you what, it's really hard to get on board with the Astros against even competent right-handed pitching right now with no lefties in their lineup. I mean, Jordan being hurt is big for them. So they have good hitters in their lineup. They're probably going to be better than they've been so far, but they don't stand out in any way.
Nah, I think we were talking about this
Tucker and Bregman and now Alvarez.
Yeah, and Altuve seems fairly washed at this point in his career as well. It's a before we were talking about as a middling offense. Now with updated information yard on out, I don't even think it's mid. I think it's just a bad offense right now. I don't think Chad Patrick is some sort of stud or anything like that, but I don't view Houston's offense as any different than the Pirates offense or any different than the Giants offense. It's just a team.
I feel like the Giants are even
Sox. They're not good.
The Giants are way better than those teams right now. I mean, you look at the guys that they added, Walker and Paredes, they've been awful. So yeah, I think right now, I mean, honestly, on this slate, Patrick's more in play for me than the Astros.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, the answer is just kind of neither for me.
Fair. And the only thing I'll say is the Brewers have an awful bullpen. So there is that angle to play.
Yeah. When I was saying the Astros, I was kind of speaking multiple things at a time. I was just looking at the top stacks tool and just saying relative to these other teams where it's if you're considering Houston, they don't look any different than the Giants for tonight's.
Totally.
Than Pittsburgh. So for today, it's just a team that exists. If you played 150 lineups and you had 2% of them or something like that, I wouldn't say that's terrible or anything along those lines, but it's not a team to be prioritizing. If I'm playing 10 lineups or less, Houston's not in any of those lineups. I feel pretty strongly about that. So
agreed.
Let's give out our dong picks now, Matt. We're seeing some ones coming into the YouTube chat. So let's hear from you, Matt. Who are you picking to go yard tonight?
So I talked about how I liked Arizona a lot. I saw Lindquist was on Lourdes Gurriel, the homer last night, and awful beat, hit 2 long shots and didn't get there. He's getting there tonight. Give me Lourdes Gurriel.
All right. Let me look at some of my hitters here. All right. I've got my Angels guy, Jorge Soler. So obviously I like anybody against Jose Urena, but also if Eric Lauer is going to be the middle innings guy who pitches the bulk of the innings, cool. Jorge Soler gets a shitty lefty that he can hit, launch some homers against. So Jorge Soler, that is going to be my dong pick. And let's see what it is that we have from chat. From chat, we have lots of people going with Brent Rooker. I see Steven Leibowitz is going with Julio Rodriguez. We've got Emac Ensotex going with Brent Rooker, Yastrzemski from Ben Willie, Cal Rayleigh from Barnaby O'Toole, Ryan Jeffers from Waylon fucking Jennings. We got Folkmat going with Byron Buxton. Sam Burr going with Royce Lewis in his return game. Tango Hotel also has Ryan Jeffers. Lots of twins shout out so far. Andre B has got Vlad. Slim also is Vlad. Perdomo for 2 homers from Peter B. We've got Dalton Varsho from Joseph Ramirez. Casey Leatherwood is picking Bryce Harper and Tyler Soderstrom. Logan O'Hop from Patrick Maduke. We've got another one, Ryan Jeffers from Nate. Jorge Soler. Hey, somebody on my team. Caleb went with Jorge Soler. G Joyner also got Ryan Jeffers. All right. Tyler Ward from Steven Sands. CJ the Great going with Vlad. I think like half of the home run picks, it's either Vlad or Ryan Jeffers today. They're getting lots of mentions there for sure. We've also got Soderstrom from Willie Lang. Pete Crow Armstrong, who's been a massive breakout guy for the Cubs this year from Ken Rad, which is crazy because he looked terrible last year when he got called up as a top prospect. But now he's looking like one of the more valuable players in baseball. Dirty O's got Royce Lewis. We've got Langford from Clintwood 83, O'Hearn from DZ, Seager from Okeezy. We've got PCA, Pete Crow Armstrong, that is from Slim. Trey McKelly's got, we got Neto. Ellie De La Cruz from Eson. And then Green Checkmark has got Trevor Story. So guys, thank you very much for watching. If you've not done it, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Thank you very much for watching. NBA Live Before Lock coming up in a couple of minutes, and then I'll be over on Playback with Josh. So see you guys there. Peace. Good luck with your lineups.